357 Productions is proud to present the Masonian, a monthly podcast for Freemasons with a focus on the Grand Jurisdiction of North Carolina. While not an official function of the Grand Lodge of North Carolina, we operate with full endorsement of Grand Master Speed Hallman. The opinions expressed on this show are those of the participants and in no way reflect the opinions of the Grand Lodge of North Carolina, its members, or any appendant bodies. 357 Productions does own this music, so we play it all the time. We're pretty excited. This will be the last podcast of this flavor.
Of this flavor, that's right.
Of this flavor.
Good way to put it.
And we've got, a superhero in Masons tonight.
Yes.
Brother Mike Daniels. And I'll let him go over everything that he is
we should done. No, we don't have time for that. We only got an hour or two to do the show. Take Mike an hour to go over all his honors and stuff.
But we are glad to have him.
Yeah, so let's get this out of the way first. We have been talking about this for a while, and we're gonna change the show. We're gonna quit doing a monthly podcast. Originally, we've been doing this for almost 3 years now. This is episode around 34? You said
34.
34. It would have been 3 years today, but we missed last December, and we missed another one somewhere along the line. But if you remember, when we did the first show, it was sleeting. And it was in the winter, and I think maybe it was February. Maybe we've only missed the one show from... Anyway, doesn't matter. We've been at it for essentially 3 years. When we started this, there was some thought of us doing it officially through either PR committee or the education committee or somehow for the Grand Lodge. We kicked around this idea, talked to some folks. Some really liked it, some didn't like it. But the reason we ultimately decided not to do that, the reason I ultimately decided, at least on my end, was that if it's official, it's going to be a lot harder to get out of than if it's just us. If it's us, and we decide one day we don't want to do it anymore, we can walk in here and say, hey, we're done, see y'all. And that's essentially what we're going to do with at least the monthly version. When we started this thing, the three of us, me and Riley and Brown, all wanted this thing to be edgy. What we envisioned having for a podcast was where we push boundaries. Guns are the big thing these days. I don't really care about the guns, but I'd love to get a pro-gun guy and an anti-gun guy in here and let them go at it. And of course, I'm not much of a mediator. I'm more of I got an opinion, and I'd rather be on one side or the other, fighting it out. But we wanted to talk about controversial stuff like that, and just didn't work out that way, did it, Riley?
No.
So a couple of things happened. One, we got popular, and we didn't think that was going to happen. We never expected anybody in Masonry.
4 people instead of 2.
We didn't expect
that.
We didn't think the Grands were going to listen. We didn't think that DDGMs and DDGLs were going to listen. We just thought it was going to be more of a common man kind of show. We were going to talk about motorcycles a little bit, and fire department a little bit, and but somehow that didn't happen. We got into doing some announcements, and the way that we got into doing the announcements was that we were involved in Wilkerson College, the Davie Academy, the Grand Lodge Committee on Masonic Education as time went along, and we were just tied into Sophia. And
people would say, hey, how about plugging this? Or how about plugging this? And,
which
we didn't mind.
And we felt compelled to, talk about all those things, and they're good things in Masonry. But we found ourselves going more and more down a path of becoming the announcement crowd of the Grand Lodge than the edgy folks that we wanted to be. So we've been bemoaning this fact. As soon as you see us, every time we get done shooting one of these, everybody starts talking. Well, Brown will cut the sound, but you can still see us talking. And every time what we're saying is, what'd you think of the show? I hated it. I wanted it to be more controversial. I wanted to push more boundaries. And we just felt like we couldn't do it. I got in trouble for cussing. And, so then we couldn't cuss anymore, which nobody told us we couldn't. They just asked us not to. And, at it being respectful, we didn't. But that took us yet another step away from the edginess that we wanted. And I'm not saying that you got to cuss to be edgy, but it was a series of these things, and people of influence saying, hey, why don't you talk about this thing that I had no interest in talking in? about, and we found ourselves just being drawn more and more into being almost an official thing, Mike? Mm-hmm. So, and we operated with the endorsement of the Grand Master is the way we set this up. So we weren't official, but we were kind of endorsed. And I guess that worked out okay, but I talked to the Grand Master back probably July or August, and told him, amongst other things, that we didn't we didn't want the endorsement anymore, because at that time we didn't know we were going to quit. We were thinking we would just go more edgy, drop out all the announcement kind of stuff, and do a more edgy program. And the deeper we got into the year, it just became more apparent that we probably run our course. So I started talking to Jonathan back at annual communications, the first time I talked to him in person about this. I've talked to him at least twice more on the phone about it, about the Grand Lodge ought to have a podcast that does their announcements and things of interest that's going on in the state. But that's not what we want to do. But they need that. As soon as I told the Grand Master that we were going to drop the endorsement and quit doing all the announcements, all of a sudden all these dudes start coming up saying, "Hey man, I really love the podcast," which we get that all the time anyway. "I really like that y'all announce what's going on. It's the easiest way for us to get information and know what's coming up." I bet I had 24 of them come up since then, which almost made me think that maybe we're doing the wrong thing.
You're like, oh yeah. Man.
But my intuition tells me that we've run our course. So, what are we going to do going forward, Riley? What's the plan?
We're going to shoot this thing when the pack leader gets the feeling. We are going to be edgier. We're going to still talk about Masonic stuff and how things attribute back and forth, but we're going to do the plan that we originally set forth.
Yeah, we get a topic that interests us. We're going to shoot a podcast on it.
Yep.
We may shoot 2 a month,
yep,
and then we may skip 2 months.
So we're not going anywhere. We're just different direction.
Yep. So don't look for us every month. You'll just have to look and see when we pop up with something. And we still get national level speakers in for both Wilkerson College Lodge and Sophia. We'll be trying to interview all of those guys that we can. Something comes up in North Carolina that we're interested in, we'll talk about it. But time waits for no man. Yeah.
And there's a lot of people talking about possibly picking it up. So it might be a good project. The Masonian starring Curry Pendleton.
So for those that don't know, Curry is now the chairman of the Public Relations Committee, and he's kind of kicking around the idea of maybe doing something. I don't know. I hear sometimes at the Grand Lodge, the Grand Secretary's office is maybe playing with it, and sometimes not. I really don't know what's going on. They don't tell me, and they don't have to. It's their business. But I wish somebody would do it. And I've given them more than fair warning that we're, one way or another, getting out of that business. And I don't know. I guess they'll do something.
And one thing, just to,
it's a shame if they don't. But
as we go forward, after you guys see this podcast, of course, Sean's going to put it on our Facebook page. And under the comment section, what would be some topics that you guys would like to see or hear and us talk about that would be edgy? Now, we've got a host of things that we know are edgy and that we're going to do, but, we would like to get some feedback from our followers on what you guys would like for us to talk about, or maybe some topics you guys would like to hit that are kind of edgy that you think, well, I don't think they'll talk about that on there, or maybe they wouldn't. So in the comment section under this post, when Brown gets it up for us, if you guys will shoot some ideas, we'd just be interested in seeing them.
Absolutely. And just to make a point so that there's no confusion here, the progressive Grand Line officers have been nothing but good and supportive. They've given me some suggestions, some that we took and some that we didn't. Some we probably should have. But they've been nothing but supportive of us. So I don't want anybody to come away with the impression that they've somehow shut us down or run us off or discouraged us or anything. They've done nothing but encourage us. It's just run its course.
Well, I think what you guys have done is fill a void that's been blatantly, obviously wide open for a lot of people. Not just so much from the having to get the announcements out and that sort of thing, but really from just talking in a semi-public forum about things that are on everybody's mind, especially if you're a Mason in North Carolina. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's okay to talk about it. And I think a lot of people are going to miss that. So, sorry, guys.
Well, we'll see. We'll still
Way to
talk
bring
about
us
the
down again,
controversial
Mike.
Sorry.
Well, so one of the things that everybody complains to me constantly about is it's too long. It's an hour-long show. And we could have cut it down, but we didn't want to. It's our show. And I think you're really cutting it short. You're selling it short if you only do a 20 or 30-minute show. At least I am. I can't talk about anything in 20 or 30 minutes.
I did a show with a famous vlogger the other day, a famous YouTube blogger, and he said that the maximum length that you want to shoot a YouTube video is 20 minutes. That's what he does all his in 15 to 20, but that's his job. That's what he does.
Yeah, the TED Talks do that too, but Joe Rogan talks for 3 hours. Of course, they're smoking weed while they're talking.
Yeah, makes it a lot different. He doesn't realize it's
Probably
that long.
smooths things down.
Time has a different meaning then.
We just got here, fellas.
Yeah. So anyway, we're not going to be doing any announcements tonight, but there are a few things that have happened that I do want to mention. One is, since we shot the last episode, which was way back in November, because we missed December altogether, is we had a grand installation. And I'm very proud of most worshipful brother Speed Hallman. He's going to be a great Grand Master. He's our friend. You just couldn't ask for a better fellow and a better leader. So best of luck to him. We mentioned to him about doing a show with us. He said that he would, but may want to wait closer towards the end of the year. When they start at their district meetings, man, it's an absolute grind for those guys. And I think he kind of wants to get that out of the way and see how his year's going to start to develop before he comes and talks about it. So he has a standing invitation. He knows that. Hopefully we'll be able to get together and you get a message from him. Same to all the other Grand Line officers. If any of them got something they want to talk about, they just want to get some FaceTime with the brothers, they got a specific thing they want to discuss, whatever, you call us, we'll shoot it right here. People at Tractor Shed will feed us, and we'll come in here and talk it up. And so don't wait on me to call you. If y'all want to talk, call me. If we don't hear from you, we'll assume we'll just truck right on, and that'll be fine.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. So we had an installation the other night at Sophia. Some things that I've always been careful about, I'm not going to be as careful about tonight. Sophia is the best damn lodge in the state.
Hear, hear.
And in my opinion. So I ain't got nothing against people that want to get their masonry some other way. There's a crowd that wears overalls and rides motorcycles, and people that are tied to a university. I didn't go to any of those schools. It's not for me. But that's for them, and it works for them.
And we might not be for them, and that's fine.
That's right. Our way may not be for them. So you get your masonry the way that it talks to you. The way that's what sings to me is the traditional observant style. I love it. I like it. I love the brothers at Sophia. In addition to all the other really good things that go on there, all those brothers know their ritual. When they come to practice, they've looked at their OSW before they get there, so they know their parts. When they say they're going to show up, they're going to show up. If they're not going to show up, they're going to send you an email or call you and let you know they're not going to show up. They're just everything you could ask for in a bunch of brothers. And they're not perfect. Nobody is. But, boy, that's a good doggone lodge.
It has a good groove about it, too. It's got a different vibe than other lodges you go to. It's deliberate, intentional masonry, not just a bunch of guys doing stuff from memory and that sort of thing.
What does that mean, Michael?
It's a different thing.
What does that mean?
What does what mean?
Deliberate and intentional masonry.
They are meticulously, deliberately executing their masonry live, not reciting it from rote, not recalling a bunch of facts or data. They're subjectifying it, making it themselves coming out in their ritual. It's a beautiful thing. If you ever watch it done at Sophia, it's paced, it's regulated. There's a rhythm to the way just the opening is done. There's a rhythm to it. There's a contemplative, meditative feel about it. It's intentional, and it's deliberate, and it's executed with everything those guys have in them. And you can tell, you can feel the difference in the room when you're in there.
So when you set that space with that intent, how does that allow for a different feel?
Well, first of all,
Go deep, Michael.
well,
Go long. Go long.
the whole idea about why we even do ritual in the first place, I think we really need to examine that as Masons in general everywhere. Ritual does a couple of things. It does keep together some knowledge and some stuff that's been handed down, whether we understand it or not. The ritual is going to preserve that for a while. But what it really does for us is condition our minds to be able to receive whatever's there for us that day, to be able to experience that brotherly love, that fraternity that is something more than just a bunch of people that sign the same sheet of paper and that sort of thing. There's a true bond and true brotherhood there. And there is a spiritual energy that's generated, not to get too woo-woo about it or anything.
Oh, go on.
But there's a spiritual energy that's generated that when there's intent behind what you're doing, it informs the space. I know that sounds kind of kooky, but there's a different feel in the air. There's a different attitude, and it really comes from the intention of the people there. It's said in just about every esoteric system is what's inside you is what's going to come out. And that type of space, that masonry done in that way, brings out those characteristics that typify or personify or express fraternal, brotherly love and friendship in a deeper way, more than just a casual, loose association of a bunch of guys that happen to think the same things. It's much deeper than that.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, I definitely, we talk about it a lot, and Brown and I have been very fortunate to have two mentors in you two guys, and we've learned a lot. Or I've personally learned a lot. I don't want to speak for Brown, but I think he has to. But I've learned a lot from you guys, and one thing that I've always taken away from that I've heard you guys harp on, and I see it to be true, is when you're doing a degree, is the importance of that degree to the candidate. I mean, you have to put everything into it, or this is a sacred thing
for him,
and you've got to give that positive energy to that candidate, and put it all out there. And it just seems like at Sophia, everybody's not just firing all on all cylinders, but the same cylinders, and everybody's trying to give everything they can, especially in the degrees, to that candidate. And I don't know, it just makes it a special place. And I know we talked about it the other night, and I've heard you say it numerous times in different meetings and different things that we've been in. And it's true. It really is. I mean, if you're not going to take it serious and you're not going to give it 100% and know the meaning of it and what it's going to mean to that candidate, and I mean, why are you doing it? I mean, I don't,
And I think that preparation up front makes a big difference in it too. Before the lodge even opens, the officers are in there getting that space ready, getting that the feel of the place right,
vibration,
the vibe right, yeah. And then once it starts, it's still paced and regulated, and it gives us a chance. And we dress in tuxedos, and it's not because we're trying to be fancy or all that sort of thing, but because we are taking what we're doing extremely seriously. We're giving it our very, very best because it's worth it, because we're worth it. Masonry, is there to help us improve ourselves, and thereby, that's the only way we can ever really improve the world around us, right? Is if we work on ourselves first. But when you get into that very beginning piece of this, where the space is being prepared and there's a very contemplative feel around it, it gives us a chance and reminds us to take out the trash, to get rid of all the stuff that's keeping our focus on everything except for what we're there to do and who we are. There's 1,000 things that'll draw our attention. Just the fact that they're in that room at that time is a big deal. You've heard me preach it everywhere. Every single time a guy chooses to come out to the lodge, he's not just choosing to go to lodge. The days of, should I go out to the lodge or go to church or go to this meeting or the whatever, or sit home and watch reruns of Vandy Griffith, those days are gone. Everybody has enough things pulling them from enough different corners of the world that are of equal priority. You could spend 24 hours doing all those things and never get them all. So every time you choose to do this, you're choosing half a dozen other people to disappoint. And those people need to be able to look at this and say, man, I sure am glad Ben's a part of that, because he's a better husband or better father or a better employee or a better employer. And unless the people outside, our constituent people, can look inside and say, man, I'm glad he's a part of that. If not, we need to examine whether we need to be doing it, frankly. Or we need to change the way we're doing it, because whatever's inside is coming out.
Yeah. So setting that sacred space, wearing the tuxes to me, one is just respectful of the craft, but two, it kind of sets a tone for excellence. And that tone carries over to every aspect, right? Specifically our ritual. And we do everything in Sophia at half speed. And we do it slow and methodical, and everybody knows their lines. And you can't set a sacred space. You can do it without the tuxes. We've done it before many times, haven't we, Michael?
Sure.
Outside the lodge.
Yes, sir.
In the things that we do, you can do it in blue jeans. But what you do have to do is you can't be jacklegging around and telling a joke and talking about the weather tomorrow. And you've got to be intentional, like you say. And so if you know your ritual, then you can't do it if you're worried about what your next line is. That has to be completely out of your mind. You're just doing the ritual the way it's supposed to be done in order to set the space. You can't do that if you don't know your ritual. So, and then once you know your lines and you can concentrate on what they actually mean, and you put all of your intention into it, then you start to create that sort of vortexy kind of feeling in the room that you know it when you see it, but you can't explain. You can't explain it, but you know it when you see it, right? Kind of
Yeah.
So, and everybody can do this in their lodge. They don't have to wear tuxes to do it or use candles. The incense helps. All that helps. It all helps, but you could do it in any lodge.
And that's one thing for all the people following.
Everybody's got to be all in on it.
Yeah, you got to be all in. And one thing about it, all the followers or people that are watching, we talk about tuxes a lot. Officers are required to wear a tux, but you can come and visit Sophia and just wear a black suit.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't have to wear a tux, but we do require a black suit at least.
Yeah, that's right.
And to your point about performing the ritual, not just reciting it, it's sort of like being a musician. As a musician, if I have to think about what I'm supposed to play and what the next note is, and I can't concentrate on performing it, that the ritual part, like the song, has to become muscle memory and basically play itself. So you can concentrate on performing it and putting more of you into it rather than just playing back some other.
And that's
data.
what happened with this.
Yeah,
With this, we were so focused on what people wanted us to say and talk about, that we lost track of what we wanted to say, and it became scripted.
that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, so anybody can have a better lodge experience just by doing some simple things. Learn your ritual, slow down, and when you're doing work with a candidate, talk to your candidate, not at them. Think about them. When you're doing the prayer before, take a second and pray for that candidate, for him to learn those lessons and to have a good experience. That's all. That if you do that right there, you'll be way on down the road towards doing great initiatic work.
Yeah, and if you're looking at it from their perspective,
Yeah.
There's a lot going on for that guy right then. He's in a totally different context, different world than he's been in before. His different parts of his brain are lighting up than ours. And
I didn't think about that, but that's exactly right.
So it's a whole different, not like anything he's ever experienced before, or probably will again. And it's a huge opportunity missed whenever we don't go into it thinking of it that way and putting everything we've got, putting that intent behind it to make that experience for him be everything it should be for him. And I think we sell ourselves short, like you said before, just blasting through it or just worried about trying to remember it and forgetting where we're really going with this thing.
Yeah, nobody's perfect. We screw up lines at Sophia. We cover it well. Our guys are such good ritualists that they'll go on. They may have to get a prompt. They may not. They may just. But don't ever, you guys in your lodges, don't ever fall into the trap of saying, "Well, he'll be a fellow craft when we're done tonight." This is good enough. We're going to get in. Don't fall into that trap. Don't accept that crap. We're supposed to be excellent. Not just Sophia guys, all Masons. We're supposed to we're supposed to exude excellence.
Mm-hmm. We've got to leave him with enough tools to actually be a fellow craft.
Yeah, don't accept less than that.
Mm-hmm.
we say in business there's can'ts and there won'ts. And can'ts you train and won'ts you fire. So if somebody can't do ritual, then, good, then you help them, you train them, you put up with them to whatever degree. You try to do better. If they just won't do it, if because they don't care, you got the wrong dudes in lodge, man.
And they've gotten everything out of it they're going to get.
That's right, and they're just messing it up for everybody else. Brings me to another point I want to talk about. We're going to circle back to all this esoteric stuff in a little bit, but I've developed a little program, and when I started developing this thing, I called it Living the Closing Charge. And as I developed it, it turned really into the virtues, but it's too late to change the name. It was already on a flyer, and it was already on the Grand Lodge webpage, so,
Now you just turned it into a series.
Now we're just going with it. Here's the premise. This knucklehead that was flying the Nazi flag?
Yeah.
You hear about all this?
Yes.
All over YouTube. It's horrible. We don't need that in Masonry. Here's a story the Grand Master told about the incident with his wife the night before the election. Mm-hmm. We don't need that crap in Masonry.
True.
There's a lot of stuff going on. All these gun people coming out, and I don't care if you're for guns or against guns, but there's a lot of polarity and a lot of people being ugly to their brothers over a political issue. And we don't need that either. I think we got too many knuckleheads in Masonry. It's Ben's opinion. It's one of them things I couldn't talk about before, but by golly, I'll talk about it now.
Well, the Grand Master said it himself. We need more Masons and not just more men.
We need more Masons. I have never heard in North Carolina, other states pay attention here, I have never heard a North Carolina Grand Line officer say we're worried about our numbers. Not a progressive Grand Line officer. Mm-hmm. I've never heard them say, what are we going to do? We got to have more Masons. We got to have more men. We got to come up with a plan. They don't care. Every one of them says we want just what Speed says. We want Masons, not more numbers. We want We want quality men, and the numbers will be what they are. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness we live in this state where our leadership has that kind of thoughts. What I like to do is kick about half the Masons out. It's going to make me real popular, but I don't care.
The opinions of this podcast do not necessarily reflect those of the
Maybe not half, but there's a large percentage of guys that are not living the qualities that we are taught in the lodge. Mm-hmm. And we all fall, right? Steve Lynch says we all fall short of the glory of God. And we certainly all do. We're all sinners. And we all do the wrong thing. We all do the wrong thing at the wrong time sometimes. But for the most part, the guys that I hang out with in Masonry are good, upstanding, moral fellas that'll almost always make the right decision. And there's a bunch of fellas in Freemasonry that are not fellas that I think belong in the lodge. Well, who asked you your opinion, Ben? Well, me, and I got the doggone radio show. Me and Riley got a show.
And Brown.
Hey, you want to be in on this, Riley?
You're doing good, man.
Mike has nothing to do with this. Mike's probably still got some stuff to lose.
Mike's a visitor. Mike got hit by a ricochet off this conversation.
Since it's our last show, I just wanted to say it and get it out there. What difference is it going to make? Nothing. Makes me feel better.
And Mike's like,
the Grand Master called it when he did his speech up there at annual community. You weren't there. He talked about a coarseness in the craft that we need to get rid of, and we do. And there's no way to get rid of it. I mean, guys, been a Mason for 30 years, and his daddy and his grandpa were both a Mason. And he's just entrenched, and he's probably not going anywhere. But man, we certainly need to quit bringing those guys in the front door. We may not need to kick them out the back door right now. Mother Nature will take care of that. But we sure need to quit bringing that kind of fella in the front door.
Now, we hear all these horror stories from across the state of what these investigative committees find on guys that are trying to initially get in. Yeah. It's amazing. I mean,
if you wouldn't,
it's dumbfounding.
If you wouldn't trust a dude to spend the afternoon with your wife, daughter, sister, or mother, he don't belong here.
I mean, it's
right.
Yes, it's scary. I mean, it's some of the things that they're reporting are unbelievable.
They are.
All right. Go ahead, Mike. Were you fixing to chime in on this?
And the next topic.
Walk away clean, man. Walk away clean.
I just wanted to get it off my chest. All right. So let's talk about changing the world, Michael.
Oh.
How
much time you got?
Well,
That's a brief topic. Let's just jump on that.
That's right.
My intuition is screaming at me for the past year with everything it's got. This middle chamber program that the Grand Lodge has graciously allowed us to be a part of is going to change the face of Masonry. Not for everybody, not for those knuckleheads I was just talking about, Riley. They don't care, and that's okay. If that isn't their thing, that's fine. And you don't have to be into this kind of aspect, this philosophical and spiritual aspect of the craft to be a good Mason. There are plenty that aren't. It's not their thing. Mm-hmm. Right? Raise some money for our charities. Look after the little old ladies in your area.
And there's tons of other lodges offering other great programs.
Be a great ritualist. Be a mentor to a young guy. You can do all those things and not be into the deeper aspect. But that deeper aspect that we're talking about in middle chamber, which is a explanation of the allegory and symbolism at a deep philosophical and spiritual level, has been laying there latent in the ground, just waiting on somebody to turn the soil and get it some water and some sunlight. The last time that this was really, to my knowledge, and Mike, you're a better historian than I am, that this was a thing would have been after the stuff in Paris in the 1870s, 80s, and 90s, and leading up to World War I. There seemed to be a real revival of these aspects of really everything in Paris, right? Yeah. I mean, all these different esoteric groups cropped up over there. You couldn't turn around apparently in Paris, without bumping into, and it was the epicenter of this thing. Without bumping into another esoteric group, and all of them cross-pollinated with each other. So that guy'd be a Mason and a Rosicrucian and a Elu Cohen and a whatever. And all that kind of bled out of Paris into England, and then eventually, somewhat to the States. And it was blossoming and flourishing. And this is where we get some of our great Masonic thinkers and writers from, all the way up until about Wilmshurst, who was writing up to and during World War I. And World War I came and absolutely decimated the whole thing. They killed so many people in Europe. So many of those esoteric guys wound up victims of the war one way or another, either directly or indirectly. Mm-hmm. And it just sucked the life out of the movement. And then following that, Masonry had this huge influx of numbers, and then we had another war and another huge influx, and everybody kind of knows the history from there. Everything kind of got watered down. But all that esoteric seed that has been laying underground after the reaper of World War I came through is there for us to find. And the Grand Lodge is allowing us to turn that soil. Talk about it just a little bit.
I think that's a perfect way to say it. There's a window that's opened up again after World War I. The wind had been knocked out of the sails of just about anything that would take somebody's attention or mind away from just surviving. They had to put everything, and then followed by the Great Depression, they had to, just by means of survival, concentrate on just living to the next day, keeping the lights on at home, so to speak. Then after World War II, with all the influx of people coming in who had been in these tight combat situations or packed up on a ship together, they came together and they did a lot of great work. Huge charities were born out of this thing. A lot of good was done. But I think two things happened. One is we got into a little bit of an identity crisis about who Masons were. And we started identifying things like the charities and the community projects and all that sort of thing that they do, which are all absolutely good. But going all the way back to what Masonry was originally designed to do, what we were looking at and saying that's Masonry or that's what the Masons are doing, really, at least in my theory, those things are the symptoms or byproducts of what we're supposed to be doing. If we're improving ourselves, if we are getting rid of the things that are keeping us from being what we're supposed to be, if we're divesting ourselves of all the scattered white noise in our head, and we're focusing on what we're doing, and we truly are exhibiting brotherly love, making the world a better place, then the charities and the community service and the brotherhood are natural outcroppings. They're very organic outgrowths of this thing. It's a symptom of what we're doing. Should be. But I think we got it sort of reversed around and may have started identifying the symptom without the cause. It's sort of like saying I have a headache when you really might have a brain tumor. You know what I mean? We're looking at the symptom and concentrating on that and not what's really causing it.
Yeah.
You know, but that's just my theory on it.
But you know, there's never any birth or rebirth without first a death, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the death of the esoteric aspect of Freemasonry is pretty much about complete. It's about as dead as you could get. When I came in, everybody that was an esoteric Mason was in the esoteric closet. And if they dared stick their nose out, then some grumpy old past master would say, "We don't need none of that stuff here," right?
Yeah.
And and you know, not blaming it on the old guys, it's just that they had outnumbered the esoteric guys so much that when one came, you know, poked his nose out of the closet, you know, they didn't understand what he was talking about. They didn't want to know what he was talking about. They didn't think there was any place in it in Masonry, and they would kind of shout him down, and he would either go back into the closet or just go away altogether. But now the time is just ripe. The esoteric part being almost completely dead, holding on by his fingernails for all those years by a few guys that were willing to hang on and usually do it in some other venue and just also happen to be Masons kicking around, you know, in the corners. I know that there's a resurgence in that aspect of the craft coming. I know there is in North Carolina because we put together this program and it was wildly successful last year. True. And I got a feeling it's going to be bigger this year than we can handle. Yeah. I got a feeling today talking to some guys and about how many guys they know are coming. Mm-hmm. We'll see. We started with 40. We had 43 students last year. Mm-hmm. In 2017, I don't know how many we finished with, but I'm thinking 36.
Yep, so it was close to,
give or take one or two.
We lost about 10 or 15%.
Which you expect.
Which is better than what we expected, actually.
Yeah. And I got a feeling this year is going to be much bigger, and if it'll just grow a little bit every year, in a few years, you know, it's going to be really big. And I think there's room for that growth. I think guys come in. I think there have always been guys that came in to this almost a gateway drug of Freemasonry, mm-hmm.
looking
for that depth and that spirituality, and that esoteric kind of not crazy witchcraft spooky, but kind of Dan Brown, you know, mm-hmm. all symbol kind of stuff, and they didn't find it. So what happened before was they'd drift off. Yep. They'd either pay their dues but not come to lodge because they couldn't talk about what they wanted to talk about. Nobody either knew or cared or would talk to them about it because they didn't know. Or they'd just go away altogether and usually join some other esoteric order. And they may or may not keep their dues card, but they didn't come to lodge. Mm-hmm. But now we got this program, and it's not such a taboo anymore because it's not the boogeyman hiding in the closet. The guys that come into the lodge that are interested in that stuff have a place to learn it. And those guys, not all of them, but a lot of them, will find what they're looking for where they weren't before, and they'll stick around, and then they'll become officers in your lodge, and then they'll be good members for you, and they'll run the gamut like the rest of us, and then hopefully train some more guys. I feel like it's turning, and it's going to go out to other states, I promise you. It's going to explode. That's Ben's feeling. What do you think?
I agree. I do think if you were to poll the Masons that came in the last 12 years or so, I would say a big percentage of those guys are younger and they're seekers. And they're looking for something meaningful and real in their life that they can put to use today. Not theoretical stuff, not the stuff that's... A lot of people will confuse esoteric stuff with just alternative history. right? I want to know where the Templars stuck this particular, whatever. Which is interesting in and of itself. The biggest thing they needed, though, these guys coming in, was to know it's okay. When I first started doing these, you going around doing programs and things back, gosh, almost 15 years ago now. That's the biggest thing that I noticed was they just needed permission. They needed to realize it was okay to talk about this oddball stuff that had sort of been suppressed for a while. That had sort of been, or they felt like it was suppressed because they got reactions like this. If you came up in your lodge and they wanted to say, "Oh, what does this mean?" or what's this further light thing we're talking about? They got a couple of different responses. One may have been, "Oh, that's all balderdash, poppycock, and whatever. What's here is here." It's not common. Or the guys get really defensive, or they would say, "Oh, you're not ready for that yet." Those are all just control dramas that come out to say, "I don't know."
I don't know. Yeah.
And
but I got too much ego to say I don't know.
And they're embarrassed because they know they should know. They know there's something more, but they can't put their finger on it because the generations before them really were busy keeping the lights on. We can't really fault them for the esoteric, or I like to call it the subjective side, the piece that makes it me, right? The subjective side of Masonry was kind of pushed back because you think about after World War II, we were busy as a nation developing our identity as a superpower, an industrial giant, and we're making our own identity. That takes a lot of energy and a lot of focus. So we see this, it's natural. Everything in nature goes through cycles, right? It breathes out and it breathes in. And we are lucky enough to be sitting here right now when this stuff is just starting. We're about to crest the wave. I think I agree with you, and I don't think it's just going to be localized to the Masonic community either. I think it's going to go wide.
Well, society is just so shallow these days, and people are looking for depth.
Yeah. We
grew up in the garden, right?
Right.
Kids don't garden these days. They go to the grocery store.
Right.
If they even do that.
It's a total cultural shift. And here's the other thing.
Yeah, you used to go shop for your clothes. Now you order them off the internet. I mean, it's just.
Well, yeah, shopping in general.
It's not bad. Different. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's different.
Different times.
Yeah, young people don't have the real experiences, hands in the dirt that we did.
Right, but they do have a different sense of community than we had too. And they have,
which is good for us.
Yeah, well, it's very good for us because they're going to take care of us when we're old, right? So hopefully that'll carry on. But as these, I think the younger guys are trying to separate the way they were raised. They're trying to separate what is real, my spiritual identity, or my, who I am as a person, and how much of that is cultural. Because so many things that we associate when we grew up in the church, and we, did this, and we had these very set things, and so many of those things, and they're all good things, but so many of those things are organizational constructs. And when you separate out what is an organizational thing or a cultural thing, then you start looking at what is left and say, that may be getting a little bit closer to the truth. So they're trying to peel out all this other stuff that they grew up with, and they're questioning it, which I think is great. Because until you do question, you've heard me say this 100 times, until you question it for Riley Beeman and for Ben, until you make it your story, it's just a story, whatever your story is.
Right.
Until you subjectify it and make it uniquely and completely yours and embrace it as, this is who I am. It's just a story. It's just gobbledygook, flyer filler. But
so let's talk about the middle chamber program a little bit, without giving it all away, or without violating our obligations here in front of God and everybody. Because when we do this, it's not in a tiled setting, but we make sure everybody is a Master Mason. The first day we'll look at everybody's dues card, vet them out, make sure one way or another we'll vet them out and make sure they're all Master Masons. And then once you sign up for the class, of course, you have to, for sure, have to be. So we can go much further in the class. I mean, we can go as deep as we want in the class because we're talking to our people. Here we're kind of talking to the whole world. But so, first of all, it is a fully sanctioned Grand Lodge program. It's not, Ben and Mike's crazy tailed,
Traveling sideshow
with the
Electric fantasy show.
So, Right Worshipful Brother Sean Bradshaw is our mentor and leader. He's the chief of this program. Most of the instruction is done by Mike and myself. Randy Browning and Curry Pendleton also teach some, and are full members of the team. They each have their respective duties that they do, and we kind of all teach a little bit, but pretty much it's small. This year we're going to do, so the first thing you have to do is you have to come to a 3-hour introductory course. Pretty much that's listening to us to explain what the program is. We kind of give an overview. We talk in more depth than we're going to talk about here about what the things that we're teaching, the material aspects, the psychical aspects, the spiritual aspects, and somewhat try to scare the students off, because it's going to be a long, hard year with a lot of reading, a lot of homework, and a lot of soul searching and self-reflection that is sometimes painful and difficult for the student.
True. That's a commitment.
So we pretty much try to almost run them off, or at least tell them what they're fixing to get into. So you've got to go to that. There's January 27th. We're going to teach this in 3 locations across the state on the same day. Randy Browning is going to start in Goldsboro at, I think, 9 o'clock. There's a flyer. I'll tell you how to find it in a minute. And Sean Bradshaw is going to ride down there, and he's going to kind of kick things off for them. Give them the admin aspect, give them a go fight, win, give her a speech. And then Randy's going to finish teaching the rest of the course. Then Sean's going to drive to Greensboro, where at noon I'm going to teach the same class. And then he's going to drive to
Lenore.
Lenore, High Brighton, where Michael's going to teach a class. So he's going to kind of kick it off in all 3 places. So that's going to be a long day for Sean. But so you have those 3 opportunities January 27th. If you just can't go to one of those that's going to be somewhat in your area, then the next Saturday, which is February the 3rd, is the following Saturday. There's one final get-in class for the introduction. That's at Greensboro, at the Greensboro Temple. Mm-hmm. And I don't know who's going to teach that. Me, I think, or us, or
we may ham and egg that one.
So once you come to that, if you want to do it, then you will get all the instructions on how to do the rest of the courses. You got to call Grand Lodge office. You send them a check. They send you some books. It's really great. And then there will be an entered apprentice class, and we teach one. The 2 locations we're going to teach is Raleigh and Salisbury. So we'll teach the entered apprentice class in Raleigh, and then a couple weeks later we'll teach the same class in Salisbury. You can go to either one,
or both.
Usually you go to the one that's closest to you, but if you got a conflict, you can drive another hour and a half and pick it up. Then there's a fellow craft in Raleigh, and a fellow craft in Salisbury, and a master mason in Raleigh, and a master mason in Salisbury. You don't have to take but one of those classes, but you have to take them in order. You cannot take the entered apprentice, skip the fellow craft, and then come back and do the master mason. If you have to do that, we'll explain all this when we get ready to in the introduction class, but you got to make that commitment to go to the 3 classes. If you just absolutely can't make it to one, then you got to wait and pick up the class next year and cycle in, because Masonry is a progressive art, and you have to learn the lessons of one degree before you can go on to the next one for it to make any sense, right, Michael?
I've heard that before somewhere.
So the things that we talk about, do you want to do it, or you want me to do it?
Oh, go ahead.
All right. So there's we'll start with the entered apprentice degree. The entered apprentice degree is all about your relationship with the material world. There's a ton of work on your ego, in the way, the lens that you look at the world through, in the mask that people see when they look at you, and how that's not the real you, and how to get down to the real you, which is beyond all of that. And it's about materialism. And this is not me making all this stuff up. This is a lot of really learned men that have written train car loads of books about it. And your ritual is absolutely full of it. It's just that nobody knows it because they don't know what the doggone ritual means. Mm-hmm. The materialism aspect is our attachment to our stuff.
Yep.
And so what we really teach you to do is identify the parts of the ritual and what it is, the lessons that they're trying to teach, and marry those up and make you have at least a basic understanding of those lessons. Now, we cannot, Michael, as good as Michael Daniels is, and he is as good a lecturer as I have ever seen, he cannot teach you in a 6-hour class how to divest yourself of ego and all your materialistic aspects. You can't do it, right? They got to do it for themselves. Matter of fact, we can't do that for them, period. If we had 6 years, we couldn't do it for them.
And it is a journey. We're just trying with our headlights to see the next 30 feet of the path, you know.
So we're trying to give them, the students just push them down the road, and hopefully, Lord willing, they'll take off running and run that race themselves, because they've got to, because we can't do that. We can't build a course that big.
It's not a data-driven thing either. We're not. You can, if it were just data and facts, we could just email that to you and call it a correspondence course. You know, this is experiential. This is, your journey is unique to you, and it's a journey that's not going to be over anytime soon if you're serious about it. That's, we got what, 70 odd years here. There's a reason we have that much time, because it's going to take it all if we apply everything we've got. Amen. But in that first degree section, we're talking about things like the false self, who we think we are versus who we really are, and how do we really get a closer glimpse into knowing ourselves, and duality. Wow. Is it really all or nothing, or are everything just sort of degrees of each other, like the magnet, or the light and the dark side of yourself, You're always going to have those, and if you take a magnet and cut off the South Pole, it immediately generates another South Pole. You will never be without it. What you have to do is figure out how to balance that stuff out, and that's sort of the jumping off point on the middle chamber program is know yourself.
Right.
Which is simplest thing in the world, hardest thing in the world to do.
So before the first class, except for the very first class, which only has a week between it.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
There's required reading, and then we discuss a lot of the reading. So between the Entered Apprentice class and Fellowcraft, there's more reading. So the Fellowcraft degree is all about the psychical, it's a Wilmshurst word, the psychical part of man. It's the mind stuff. It's your personality typology, and it's your experiences, and it's your intellect, and we think it's all about the sciences and the orders of architecture and all that stuff, and there is a lesson there, but there's a deeper lesson. All esoteric initiatic orders have outer circle teachings, and then they have inner circle teachings, and the masses get the outer circle teachings that they don't really understand what it means, and the inner circle people get a deeper understanding. Now, I'm not telling you that every Mason doesn't understand what all I am. Yeah, they don't understand what the ritual means, and we certainly don't know it all. But definition experts, somebody knows a little bit more about something than you do. Then I guess we know just enough to hopefully send some guys off, at least show them where to look and get them to thinking. And then they can learn a lot themselves.
It's not exclusive. I think we need to make that point too. The whole inner and outer teachings might give the sense that, you'll, whenever we tap you, you can come in. It's not like that at all. It's just whoever's in the right place within themselves and they're on a path, every one of those guys is welcome. There's nothing excluding saying no, but it's not going to be for everybody. It's not going to be for everybody. The people that will be drawn to it are drawn to it, and they're 100% welcome. But there's no way to go out and say, yeah, you need to do this, so you learn this stuff. Well, you know what? When they're in the right place and they're ready, they will.
That's right.
So they'll find it somewhere.
Some will quit. Mm-hmm. Some will take the whole course, but still not really know what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. But some hopefully, start to really resonate the lessons and then go on and find more answers. At least know which direction to go off in on their quest for answers.
You may come out of there and not have the secrets of the universe, but you will for sure have thought it through before you get out of there.
That's right. Yeah. So second degree, all about the mind stuff, and we use lots of different teaching techniques to teach all this. Again, a lot of reading, a fair amount of lecture. We try to be interactive.
A couple of assignments.
And we're with this program is evolving as we go along. So I'm sure we already know that it's going to look different this year than next year. We took all the mistakes we made and modified them, our teaching technique to those. And then next year, I'm sure we're going to learn more lessons.
Yeah, because we're on the path too with this.
Dang right.
We you know what they say, you never learn so much as when you try to teach it to somebody else.
That's right.
Well, that's where we've been for the last year or so, is learning along with these guys. Actually, I think we've learned a lot more than they do, and realize how little we knew going in.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always thought the best way to learn something was to teach it. It forces you to become a subject matter expert, and
it forces you into the details.
Yeah.
That you never noticed before.
Yeah. Third degree is all about the spiritual aspect of man. We explore that in depth. Everybody knows the third degree. All you Masons that are listening, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then go join Masonry. But all the Masons know what we do in the third degree. And if the first degree and the second degree are hard to tease out what the lessons are, the third degree is really hard to tease that lesson out if you don't have somebody help guiding you along.
That's a longer session that day too. That one is longer than the other ones, any of the others.
All of this falls kind of under the Steinsmetz, Wilmshurst, McNulty, Pike. These are the books that we use. School of Philosophy, which mostly agree with each other, at least on the broader aspects. So, this is what Middle Chamber is. Nobody in America is doing it except for North Carolina, because they were foolish enough to let us do it, brave enough to let us do it. What?
Somebody was not looking.
Hey man, I'm so proud of them for letting us do it, because I mean, we could mess it up. We got Sean. Sean's not going to let us. Me and Mike could go, deeper than we probably should if left unleashed. but we're really careful
whenever we go out.
I mean, we try to be careful with where we go. Sean is always telling us his kind of mantra when we're putting together lesson plans and stuff is stick to masonry, stick to masonry, stick to masonry. So as long as we're using the ritual, we're talking about the ritual, and we're talking about the tools and the symbols and the allegories of Freemasonry, we're in bounds. And so we're careful to do that. Every class we start to get out of bounds. The conversation will take us out of bounds to something that's outside of Masonry. And one of the instructors, or if Sean's there, he'll pull the reins in and say, "Whoa, all right, let's back up. Let's get back in our lane."
And sometimes you do need to get out in the field a little bit, just to be able to see what's over there. You know what I mean? But because a lot of the other things we venture into, they're saying the exact same thing, just in a different way. We're here to focus on Masonry. But in order to do that, you kind of need to understand a lot of other things too. So we might take a whistle stop or a side trip here and there, but by and large, we're staying on the blue path on this one because they're paying the bill, basically.
Right. I love I love this class. I love what it's doing. I love where it's going. I love that you teach it, Mike. Mike has a background in corporate training. And he is a fabulous, fabulous trainer. So
thank you.
Yeah, it just makes me happy. And Sean doesn't teach a lot of the class, but he's another guy that's just. He trains for a living, and he's good in front of people. And I'm usually passable, and Randy and Curry are real personable, and they're good. And so I love the instructor corps. I love the students. I love the curriculum. And we're doing good work.
It feels right. Not everything does. We got a lot of stuff going on. Some things have a good groove about them. This one's different. This one feels right.
How lucky are me and you, Michael, that we're living at a time when we get to be doing this?
We are doubly blessed. It's a beautiful thing.
What would you do different about it?
You know what I would do different about it. I'd make all the sessions twice as long and do twice as many. But just because
in all your spare time.
There's no such thing as a short answer to anything in this. I would, though, if I were retooling it, and we've talked about this a couple of times, I would like to expand the outside the class experience a little bit. Let those the classmates that are coming through together, network a lot more. We've got Facebook pages set up for them and some other things, but really have a vibrant piece out there where we actually interact a little bit more with them and help them teach us about their experience, because that's where we're really going to grow. We need to learn about their experience and where some of the pitfalls may be and where the really great growth areas are.
If it continues to grow, we're going to have to do something. I mean, I don't think we can teach them all, but we're going to train some trainers or something. Of course, we could do more. This is a big reason that I pulled out of a lot of the Grand Lodge stuff that I was in, because this is what I want to be doing. I mean, this is what I think is more important to the future of the craft and doing more good in the world is this class than some of the other stuff. But the other stuff is very important. It's just I feel like this is where I belong. So if we pulled out of all the other 4,000 things we were in, or at least part of them, we'd free up a little time. Maybe we could do more classes or longer classes or something. We kicked around the idea of this year having some sort of like student mentors or small circle groups.
Yeah, the guide on the side. Yeah, I'd love to see that. I don't know. If you notice, everybody that was part of the instructor corps and deeply involved in that first year middle chamber thing has pulled back on a lot of stuff. All of us have.
Yeah. I think everybody realizes how important this is.
Yeah, we're realizing, there's a lot of stuff I'm just dragging around and doing just because. And you've pulled out a lot of stuff. I pulled out some stuff. And Randy and Curry, they're lightening up their load a little bit too.
Well, not Curry.
Because we can focus it.
Randy is, not Curry.
Well, Curry's
getting into more stuff daily. He's probably in 3 or 4 more things since we started this show.
Yeah, that's the being in the wrong place at the wrong time guy.
He can't say no.
yeah. But everybody's starting to see, this is where the pointy end should be. This is where our focus should be.
Man, well, I couldn't be more thrilled. What else you want to talk about?
Oh, gosh.
Anything else on the middle chamber or the lessons that we're teaching there? You want to go deeper, or you want to let it ride here?
I just want to. We can park it here, but I do want to just say, what? If you're a Mason that has been disappointed with your Masonic experience from a personal development standpoint, it's not because no one is developing you. It's because you haven't found the right program or the right tribe or the right
band of
the right venue for it. You might be interested in middle chamber. Come out and give it a try and see how the other half lives on this thing. It's a beautiful thing. It will change how you view yourself and therefore change your view of the world. And that's the only thing we're after.
Amen. Amen to that. Michael, thank you for everything you do in Masonry.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for, with the exception of the Grand Master, maybe the Deputy Grand Master, I don't know anybody that's busier than Michael. He is, so there's a Google Calendar for the Grand Lodge Committee on Masonic Education that shows when all the Speakers Bureau events are. Michael is by far the most requested speaker on the Speakers Bureau.
No doubt.
He never tells anybody. No,
I did not know that.
Oh, by far, he's not even close.
Oh, wow.
I'm the only one that's remotely close to you, and I'm not even that close. So he travels more than anybody should, and he's in every other appendant body, and he's in charge of academics at Davie Academy, and I know you're killing yourself, Michael, but we really appreciate it, and all this, and every other thing.
We appreciate you being a rock star. We appreciate that.
Anyway, sometimes everybody likes to hear they're appreciated. So I appreciate you, and I know the brothers in North Carolina do too.
Well, thank you. That means a lot.
Good to see you, buddy.
Good seeing you, man.
Appreciate it.
Riley, it's always good. Thanks. Sean, nice little dad.
I am smelling like a rose that somebody gave me 'cause I'm dead and broke.
Thank you for listening to the last episode of the Masonian. We're not leaving, we're just changing direction.
So we'll definitely be back. But again, we'd like to thank everybody for following the Masonian. And please keep up with our Facebook page. Check back with us on 357 Productions as we start a new venture on a new path, and we'll have a new name for that coming up probably shortly. But check out our page at 357 Productions or 357productions.com. As always, tell people that you love them, and remember, we meet on the level and part on the square.